Hey guys, it is Marcus and Terry here with you today, and today we have a little bit of an interesting topic that we don't usually talk about. Now, this morning we have been digging deep into the channel Soft White Underbelly, which features recordings and interviews from various alcoholics, addicts, homeless people, and people who have dealt with all kinds of things in their life. Now, what we want to do today is open up the dialogue and talk to you guys about what this is about and what it's like. Is it helpful? How does it help us? Now, I know for me, when I was struggling as an alcoholic, I would watch videos like on that channel, and I would feel better about my alcoholism, which was probably an unintended effect. So I was out there, I was completely drunk, I needed to get help, but I would watch these videos and I would say to myself, well, I'm not as bad as those people. I'm not that bad. I don't really have a problem. And I would use it to justify my own alcoholic behavior. And I remember even when I used to be a preacher years ago, there was a guy who was an alcoholic and a homeless guy living on the streets, and we would try to help him out, but nothing seemed to work until we finally got him in rehab. And then I hadn't heard from him again after that. But this guy, I remember looking at him as a preacher, kind of looking down my nose at him, if I'm honest with myself, and saying, you know, I'm glad I'm not like that, and I can never be that way. And it wasn't until years later when I actually became an alcoholic and admitted I had a problem that I was able to understand, yes, all of us as alcoholics and addicts are one step away from being there. There is nothing that's stopping you from being a suit and tie wearing member of society to being someone on the street. It really can happen that quick with addiction and with alcoholism. And I think it's very important to realize that these things can have a good effect, like they can share stories with the world and they can help us understand alcoholics, but they can also have an unattended effect for those of us who think that we're not that bad. And I know that that's a very common thing. We sit in our houses, we sit in our apartments or wherever we live, and we tell ourselves, my alcoholism's not that bad because I'm not on the street. So we want to open up the dialogue to you guys. And Terry, what are your thoughts on this type of stuff?
Well, first of all, let me say good morning to everybody and congratulations on your sobriety. Even having one day or 5 hours, that's awesome that you're able to get sober for just a short time. I wasn't able to. So hey, good job, Derek. Always good to see you, and Tony and Dale and let's see, who else we got here? Did I already say David? Yep, I think I did. And Buck. Then we got June and Deb and Old Timer Knives and Church Mouse too. And Ty, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's terrible. I'm glad you were able to not drink. That's great. But once again, so sorry for your loss. And Joji, good morning. And Quezzy. The YouTube channel that we're talking about, Soft White Underbelly, they have some really intriguing interviews with people. And the photographer in it, he asks some just pointed, simple questions to people, and they just answer honestly. It's great. It's great to see. To me, it's very interesting. There's a bunch that I haven't seen that I plan on watching, and they cover all aspects of society, and a lot of the aspects that many of us would say are kind of the lower rungs of society. One of the things he talks about, he interviews a lot of alcoholics that are on Skid Row, like in the Skid Row in Los Angeles and things like that. And there's many other subjects, but that's one we're kind of talking about today. When I was drinking, if I was to watch these interviews, I would be thinking, I'm not like them. I have a house. I'm still okay. I haven't lost everything. And that was my attitude. And I've seen that a lot with people that when they're drinking, that they just kind of think, I'm not a Skid Row drunk. I'm not in the gutter. I still have a home. I still have a job. I still have all this and that. I have friends that were on Skid Row. Well, not Skid Row. In San Francisco, it's the area that's known as the Tenderloin. I know a lot of people that were in the Tenderloin and that lived there for a while, and they got out. And they used to think the same thing before they went to the Tenderloin, before they got to that point of, I guess you could say it's a bottom, but they had the house and they had the wife and the job and the kids and the dog and all that, and they lost it very quickly. Looking at these interviews now in sobriety, I think they're very helpful. I think it's good to see where alcoholism can take a person, and it could have taken me there easily, and I just got very lucky, and I was able to stop. So yeah, it's scary stuff, but it's mind opening, you know.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to look at is very important when we look at aspects of our society, because we're only as strong as our weakest person as a society. And I know it's easy to look at people that are down in the dumps, look at people who are living on the roads. I remember for me, when I was 17 to about 20, 21, I was a preacher, and we preached in Santa Monica. We would go to Skid Row often and talk to people. I remember one guy, I used to be a magician, and I'd have a rope, and this guy was like, "I'm going to strangle you with your rope." And I'm like, wow, this guy's nuts. And I didn't understand what was going on then. And I wasn't able to really look at them as human beings because I didn't know where they came from. It wasn't until I became an addict and I realized, wow, being an addict and an alcoholic can completely change who you think you are. It can make you do things and act ways that you never thought possible. And then you pair addiction with maybe homelessness. Like right now, there's a lot of people dealing with a house crisis. There's a lot of people that are going to be dealing with a house crisis in the coming months. It's simply not sustainable, in my opinion. The government is not helping the little guy at all, which absolutely sucks. And, you know, you look at it, and I think about my mind and my life when I was an alcoholic, and I think about what it was like. They always tell the alcoholic, don't isolate. And they tell you this for a reason, because isolation leaves you in a world of your own thoughts. And if you have someone who's an addict or an alcoholic and they're homeless and they have no one to talk to for big portions of the day, what's going to happen is they're going to have this cycle of thoughts, and they're going to start to believe their own version of reality, which isn't actually reality. This is why you see people talking to themselves and you know, believing things that aren't true and acting funny ways, is because of this. And if you understand how the mind works, we are all literally just one accident, one drink, one drug use away from what we never thought possible. And it's interesting because in life and in alcoholism, we think we're invincible, but at the same time, we have an impending sense of doom. So we're sitting here thinking we're invincible, but at the same time, we're knowing, hey, everything can crash at 1 minute. Anything can happen. I could drink, I can drive, and I can die today. I could do that, right? Drinking and driving, you should never do it. Even if you're an alcoholic, you know, take an Uber, find a different way. Don't drink and drive. There's so many ways not to drink and drive today. And the way to deal with that is plan ahead. If you know you're going to drink, don't drive to where you're going to go drink. Take an Uber, do something else. Now, our main idea would be don't drink, because, you know, if you're an alcoholic and you continue to drink, chances are you can end up where you want to be. I was inches away from losing my family, my house, my business, my life as I knew it. Inches away, literally inches away from losing my life. And we look at that and it's like, okay, what are we going to do about this? And you watch the interviews of the people that are trying to get sober. And part of this I have a problem with. Like, I know when Terry was getting sober, he watched a lot of Dr. Phil. And I personally have a problem with this because, you know, you have a guy like Dr. Phil who's making $100 million a year or something ridiculous like that. And he's using addicts as a spectacle. And I think any self-respecting therapist should be ashamed of themselves for doing that, because you're taking an addict, you're making a spectacle of them, and there's really no outcome other than, haha, look at the addict. This guy's not like me. I feel better about my own life. I have a big problem with that. I have a big problem because I didn't want to be made a spectacle. I made myself my own spectacle. And it's not raising awareness to the issue. And, you know, we need to raise awareness to the issue, not in a way like putting an alcoholic on the Dr. Phil show or whatever, to say, hey, look, you know, look at this addict, but in a way to say, you know what, with alcohol, anyone can be this way. Anyone. I don't care who you are, right? It's like when they had really extreme situations with like concentration camps and stuff in the Second World War, right? You would take upstanding people, members of society, made money, had their stuff. You take their food away, you put them in a concentration camp, all of a sudden they're acting crazy. Or you take a bunch of normal people and you put them in prison, and all of a sudden they're acting like animals. Why? Because they're being caged up like animals. Now, obviously, we should pay our debt to society. Obviously, there is a place in society for prisons. But the idea here is to look at what it does. Look at what it does. Look at what isolation for homeless people, right? Every time we walk past a homeless, oh, I don't want to touch or get close to them. Oh, those nutty people. Well, that's a human being. That's someone's dad, wife, mother, son, daughter. You see someone who's cracked out, but it's really a person. And that person can be you. And when we look at this in terms of addiction, I think one of the things that alcoholism gave to me is the ability to see people as human and the ability to say, I'm not above anyone. I'm not above anything. Why? Because I have this animal brain and I have this stuff, and it could be led wherever. I could drink and it can change my thoughts, and it could change them to where I don't even see them anymore. I got in that trap. I got in the trap when I drank that my life was not worth more than my life insurance. I thought pictures of presidents were worth more value than my life. And I was ready to end it all because I believed that. And I think that when we look at these people who are the bad case scenarios, like on the Softbelly channel, you know, we have to look at it as we are just as sick as them. We're just not where they're at. We just haven't passed into the unacceptable realm. Like, what's the difference between me with a family and kids, like passing out on my couch every night? Sure, I got a TV and I got a couch, but I'm no different. The only difference is I either have someone that cares for me, that's willing to support me, or somehow I have enough money to take care of myself. That's really the only difference. And when we look at that, I think it starts to change things, and it starts to make us understand the alcoholic is not a spectacle. It's someone who's a victim of alcohol. And when we look at this, you know, it is, oh, hey, you know what, just get sober. Just get sober. Well, we can't. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Yeah, well, that's the key is we can't. And other people just say, I heard it many times when I was drinking. Why don't you just stop drinking? And I'd be like, oh, okay, that's a great idea, but I wouldn't stop drinking. I couldn't. There was no way I could. But, you know, looking at these interviews and really these interviews go pretty deep into just kind of their thought process and who they are and how they were brought up and stuff. And some of them had horrible upbringings, you know, the broken family, the abusive alcoholic in the family, or the whole family was abusive and alcoholic. But some of them had a perfectly fine upbringing. That was kind of mine. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in a big city, and things were pretty okay. And it's interesting to see that this is what can happen. And, you know, I was on the same trajectory if I look at it, because, you know, as my drinking continued on and on, what I found accessible, that acceptable, that acceptable level of life, I just lowered that bar. For instance, like I like to go to wineries and go out and do things. Well, when I started to realize, or not realize, but when I started to need more alcohol, I just kind of stopped going out. I just started to isolate more and more. I was just progressing, just lowering that bar. That's what I did. And a lot of these guys have done the same thing. They've just lowered it to the, you know, they're okay, fine. I don't have a home. I'll find somewhere, or I'll live on the street, I guess. They don't have a choice. They don't want to. But they find some of them. I had a good friend that his mom was homeless for 20, 30 years. He kept on getting her a place to live, and she kept on leaving and going out and being homeless, living on the streets. And it's sad to see, but sometimes that happens. this addiction can cause us to just continue to lower that bar and lower that bar until the only thing we have to deal with is getting the alcohol. And it's a hard thing to get people out of because the addiction is so strong.
Absolutely. And it's like a self-destruct mode. I mean, you
Yeah.
really don't care about anything. I remember, I'm a germaphobe. I have this tick where every time I touch something germy, if it's like outside or something, I have to like spit. Like I have to because I'm like, I have germs, it's in me. The other day we were driving and there was some dead animal in the road and I was like, we have lunch in the car and somehow it's going to get on the bag and it's going to get in the lunch. And it's like, no, the windows are up. You didn't even touch it. You just saw it. And somehow I associate that. And so I'm kind of a overboard germaphobe. And I was the kind of person where I would go through the trash bin to find the alcohol so I could pour myself a shot from all the almost empty bottles that were in the trash bin. Luckily, there was a cap on them, but I'm sure if there wasn't, I would have found a way anyway, because at that point, alcohol had been more important than everything else I thought was important in life. And it's interesting because when we get that, we look at our lives and we say, what brought us to this point? Because we don't see it. We're like, okay, here's this guy in a suit, and now he's homeless. And we think that one day he's like, hey, screw it all. I'm just going to be homeless. And that's not the case. What happens is it starts small. I didn't say I want to neglect my family and I want to neglect everything and I only want to sit around and drink all day. I never said that. What I did say is, well, I had 6 yesterday. I think I'll have like 10 today. And I don't think I'll have this. And then slowly what happened is it started to change my thoughts and I started to care less about the things I should have cared about and more about the alcohol because that was the only thing that seemed to help me. And it's very difficult because as an alcoholic and an addict, you look at that as your source of life. You look at the drug or the alcohol as your very existence. And I remember it wasn't the scary thought that I drove drunk. It should have been, because driving drunk is wrong. You should never do it. It wasn't the scary thought that I was in some random ass state, some random ass city for a business conference, and I wasn't coherent enough to figure out how to get to my hotel room. That's not what I cared about. What I cared about was the alcohol. And we look at it, and alcohol literally hijacks our brain. And when we have compassion on these people, I think we can also have compassion on ourselves and our families as alcoholics and addicts, saying, this is not the person I know. And I guarantee you take every family member who has someone who's on Skid Row or they're struggling with addiction or they're on heroin or whatever it is, and you say, is this the person you knew? 100% of the time, they're going to say, no, it's not the person I knew. This is not the person I fell in love with. This is not the son or daughter I had. This is not the father I had. Something happened. Something hijacked their brain. Something made them different. And I think there's a fine line between, looking at it and saying, okay, here's the alcoholic and what they do, and they are responsible for it. Absolutely. But also saying, here's the alcoholic, and they're hijacked by alcohol. And they can't see a different way. They can't understand a different way. Right. And it's very important to look at. It's like someone with, schizophrenia. You wouldn't yell at them for talking to people that don't exist because they have a condition. They have that condition. And I remember years ago, I had a good friend with schizophrenia, struggled with addiction. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us because of terrible, terrible circumstances that happened. But we wouldn't get mad at him. We'd try to understand him. Now, at that time, I was 19 years old, and I didn't even understand my, ass from a hole in the ground. So, but now I can look back and I could say, wow, that person needed help. And there is help for lots of people. And we got to understand, hey, if you're dealing with detox, go to the doctor. If you're dealing with alcoholism, find people who are alcoholics and learn what they did to get sober. Because we're all one step away from what we thought we'd never be. One step. You think it's going to happen, right now, but it doesn't. It happens over time. And slowly you say, well, maybe today I'm going to pay half my rent. Maybe the next day I don't pay any of my rent. Oh, wow, now I got kicked out. Okay, well, at least I got a friend's couch to live on. Well, I'm still drinking. Maybe he kicks me out. Now I'm on the street. 6 years go by, 6 months go by, and I don't even recognize what life used to be like. And I don't even care. And life becomes meaningless without alcohol. And when we look at it, we need to understand, you know what? If you're going to watch videos like that, understand you might be just like them. And I got a big problem with reality TV in the United States of America because I think that it doesn't have compassion. We sit there and we look at it. You watch shows like, My Hoarding Life, where they hoard stuff, or, weird addictions and whatever. And we look at it as a way to be like, oh, I'm not that bad. I got a few magazines stacked up, a couple of plates I didn't do in the dishes, but I'm not a hoarder. And I think the same thing happens with addiction shows that aren't focused on the truth of addiction. And I don't know if the soft underbelly is or not. Didn't watch enough, but from what I saw, it looked like a decent thing. It didn't look like he was making a spectacle or anything. But we got to look at that, and we got to say, you know what? I'm no better than anyone. I'm no better than anyone. You know why? Because life's not a competition. We're all here. And when we look at it and we say, the worst among us, right? We say, okay, this guy has the worst case of addiction and homelessness. We look at that and we say, if I was born with that person's upbringing and I did the drugs they did and I had the mindset they had, I would be that person. There is no escape from it. In a way, we are kind of predetermined to be who we're going to be because we were programmed to think what we think. And until we realize that, until we realize, you know what, it's all programming. I get the cosmic joke that it's all just programming. Here I am. This is where I'm at. Every thought, every idea was because of everything that came before. The very way that I think, the very way my brain works was predetermined by whatever I went through. And when we understand that other people are like that too. And if I can't fault myself for it, then I can't fault other people for it. And when we have compassion and we say, hey, look, how can I help someone? How can I really listen to them? What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, I was actually thinking about the slow progression of this thing that you were talking about, and how, and then you were talking about hoarding, and I've experienced that with my parents. It wasn't extreme hoarding like you see on the TV shows, but it was pretty bad, and it was just a very, very slow progression of not throwing things out. It was that simple, and just not knowing what to do with them. You see a lot of times on those hoarding shows, they want to sell the stuff, but whatever. This was just, when I finally cleaned out the house, it was quite a project to overcome. And alcohol was similar with me as far as, I went long time, maybe 3 decades of just, moderate drinking. I'd called it moderate, 4 most nights of the week, probably every night, taking a few off here and there. Was able to go days without, no problem, no negative repercussions from drinking, really. And then it just slowly crept in, and I wanted more, and it didn't happen overnight. I do know a lot of people that their story is much different than mine, where they took that drink and they felt that feeling of euphoria, and they knew that this was the answer to all their problems, and they were 15 years old, and this is just what happened, and then they were blackout drunks. That was not me. It was just slow progression over a long time. And it just crept in and took me over until it had me. And I couldn't tell you when that was that it had me, but it had me. And eventually I was able to finally get sober, but, it was that slow progression just kept going, and then there was no way out. And it was difficult. It was a tough thing to get over. And if I did keep going, if I didn't get off that elevator ride downward, where I did, I would have ended up like these people that are being interviewed. Definitely. I may have died before that. That's what happens with a lot of people. That was almost happened to me. But either way, it was I was definitely going down that elevator shaft. Absolutely. But chocolate. I saw your post way earlier that you drank yesterday and you were really sad and all that. I see lots of your comments. I haven't read them all, but you start where you are right now. That's it. Try and get sober now. There's a couple of you that don't have very much sober time at all today, and that's okay. But you can start right now where you are. Doesn't matter what happened, and get sober. Make sure you go to a doctor. That's a good thing to do. That's what you should do, because withdrawal can be deadly. But just start right now. It's okay. It's no problem.
Bill says, "Hi guys, I'm a highly sensitive person as defined by Elaine Aron, and used alcohol to shut my overactive brain up, anxiety, and the what ifs. Any thoughts?" Yeah, Bill, I was the same way. My brain pretty much goes nonstop, and it goes really fast, especially when I have coffee. And I remember years ago, I was in therapy and I was an alcoholic, and my therapist had brought in a Buddhist teacher guy to teach me how to calm my thoughts down. Now, here I am. I'm sitting here thinking about my business, my life, my alcohol, and I'm like, what's this guy going to teach me? I make X amount per month, and I need to make this, and I do this, and I do that. And this guy comes in to talk to me, and he has a stutter. Now, being the slightly assholic person I was, I thought in my brain, okay, so here I am with rapid thoughts, and I need a quick solution to stop these rapid thoughts. And I'm sitting here, and this guy has a stutter, and I can't sit and listen to him because I'm like, dude, would you spit it out and give me the answer? I got stuff to do. I got places to go. I got things to do. And I was being a complete ass. Luckily, all in my head. I wasn't sharing this with the guy, but I certainly wasn't listening. Why? Because I couldn't find 14 seconds out of my busy, overinflated, egotistical life to sit and say, maybe this guy has something to tell me that the all-knowing, enlightened Marcus has not figured out in his life. And unfortunately, that day, I wasn't able to listen to him. I went away, and I was like, that was a bunch of horse shit, and this guy doesn't know what I need. And my brain was too fast to realize that it was too fast. And it wasn't in a good way. I know a lot of us are like, well, hey, I'm a quick thinker. I'm not like these people over here that think slow. Well, maybe the people who think slow have something that we need. Maybe you can slow yourself down. Maybe it's in letting go of what we think we are. I'm a highly sensitive person. I have OCD. I have this. I got this. I'm these letters. And we cling to these letters as if they're some badge of honor. And it's like, okay, maybe you're highly, before, like 100 years ago, people were just sensitive. We didn't have things like highly sensitive person. He has this, he has that. And these are all new things that we use to brand ourselves and to give ourselves an excuse for not getting better. And now, obviously, if you have a condition that you need to go to the doctor for, go to the doctor for them. Some people with OCD need something. I'm not a doctor. I don't know about that. But when we pigeonhole ourselves and we say, well, I'm just a person with racing thoughts, we accept it as what is, and then we can't get better. We can't get better. Like if we say, I'm an alcoholic, and alcoholics just drink, so that's what I do, and that's who I am, you're going to stay drunk. But if you look at it and you say, you know what? I can stop the world right now in my mind. I can sit and I can pause. And the key isn't in fighting or trying to shut up the thoughts. The key is in realizing that's just the way you've been programmed and the way your brain works. And the key is in understanding I don't have to listen to every thought. It's like if you have a nagging family member. We all have that person who comes in and they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. For me, it's one of my uncles. And you go and you see him and he wants to talk about politics and the dude won't shut up. He just won't. It's like, dude, can you just shut up? Like, go to bed or something. And for me, I'm able to look at his thoughts and I'm able to say, this is horse shit. I'm not going to listen to this guy. Dude won't shut up. Whatever. But why am I not able to do that with myself and my own thoughts? Why is it that we take our own thoughts as some gospel truth, epiphany of life, when all they are is chemical impulses in the brain? And everyone who's here who drinks knows this is true, because when you drink, your thoughts change. Guess what happened? Chemical impulse in the brain. If you have racing thoughts and you drink coffee, they're going to race even faster. And so we look at it and we say, I don't have to listen anymore. And we don't. One of the worst things the church ever told me was to take every thought captive because we're in a war against spiritual stuff in our thoughts. Are we in a war? Do you really think the devil's sitting there telling me, that guy over there looks funny? Do you really think do you think that's what the whole thing's about? Or do you think it's just chemical impulses in the brain and I say that guy looks weird because he doesn't look like, or whatever. And we look at it and we start to understand that these are just chemical impulses. They don't mean anything. They don't. I used to walk around with a notepad because I thought my thoughts were so important that I had to write them down. This is worth so much money in life and I'm so profound. And then I realized, you know what? That's a bunch of horse shit. I'm not as important as I thought, and my thoughts aren't important as I thought. I'm one of 8 billion people on planet Earth, and it doesn't matter. And when we accept that, and we say, you know what? Thoughts are just chemical impulses. That's all they are. I can sit back and relax and say, I don't have to listen to every thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? My thoughts were just crazy when I was drinking. They're still a little bit, but at least I can differentiate and make the right choices with the thoughts. We're all going to have the thoughts that take us in the wrong direction. It's just a matter of making the choice to not act on them and act on doing the right thing. And that's huge in sobriety, because when I make the right actions or the right choices from my thoughts, then I feel better about myself, and it continues to snowball in the right direction. Where if I make the wrong choices, then I start to get that guilt, that anxiety that we were just talking about, and it starts to build and build. Then I feel like I have to hide it, and things just get worse. And then to hide it, then eventually maybe the drink is going to come. And then once the drink starts, then it's going to spiral down and keep going and get worse and worse. So yeah, that makes complete sense, Marcus. It's thoughts. It's all about perspective. And we were talking about the videos, the channel, the Soft White Underbelly, and it's when I was drinking, I had a different perspective. Those people aren't me. And when I got sober, I'm like, those people could have been me. And actually, they are me. When you really listen to those interviews, I encourage you guys to check out a couple of them. And you see that they're just people. They're just sick. And yeah, some of them they're talking some pretty crazy stuff. But deep in there, you can tell that they're good people. And they just they weren't able to find a way out. They still can't find a way out. But some of these people, they get turned around and they're able to get sober. There was one guy that is just he is sober at the interview, and he is going in and out and just having a tough time. I know a lot of people that are in that same situation, except they still have a roof over their head. But it's a tough situation for these guys. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Lizzie and some others are talking about smoking pot to, I think, instead of drinking or something. I'm not sure. I'm trying to follow it. For me, I do need to stay sober from everything just because, that is what I need to do. I know that any altering of my mind leads to anything, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Like, I remember like 2 years ago, I was getting really bad asthma, really bad. And I went to the doctor, and he prescribed a asthma medicine that was a steroid, and it was keeping me up every night. I was up till 6 a.m., and I felt great, and I wanted to work. And all of a sudden, I was like, wait a minute. This is altering my mind, and it's altering my body, and it's making me feel different, so I need to stay away from it. So I asked the doctor, is there an alternative? And luckily there was. We got to be on guard, whether it's weed, whether it's drinking, whether it's too much coffee, if that's your thing. Whatever it is, we have to really, really understand what's going on. Now, for a lot of people, maybe you're okay with it. That's for you to decide. But I would also say be very, very careful with things, because if you're an addict, you know that, it doesn't always work that good for you.
Yeah, for me, as far as marijuana goes, I liked it a lot. It wasn't part of my story towards the end there, though. But you know, I choose not to. Um, and that's just from looking at myself and looking at my history. I'm the type of person that, the alcohol story. I mean, I can't stop drinking if I start, but everything else in life. If I want pizza tonight, I'm going to order a large or an extra large, and then my wife's going to eat like two pieces, and I'm going to have a difficult time not eating all of the rest of the pizza. Because that's just the way I am. My body is wired. I want more, and with pot, that would be the same thing. And so would that make me start drinking? I don't know. But my attitude with staying sober is I can't start drinking. So I'm not going to take any of the risks that people say, the professionals that say could be a gateway or whatever. I do know people that smoke pot that are sober with alcohol and other things, and they seem to be okay with it. I don't know if they'll be okay with it 5 or 10 years from now, but I'm not them. Um, but I have to not. I have to stay away from it. It's. I don't crave it. I don't want it. So why would I start? You
Absolutely.
know?
And we got to understand that oftentimes it is slow. And oftentimes, I remember in rehab, they used to call it changing chairs on the Titanic, right? The Titanic's going down, and you're saying, instead of alcohol, I'm going to have this. And you're leaving that open for, other stuff to creep in. Now, it's to each his own. Some people are fine. Some people get sober, and, years later, they drink every day. Not alcoholically, they just drink every day. For me, I'm not going to chance it, because I know how my mind works, and I know what I don't want again, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it for me. And we got to look at that, and we got to understand it, and we got to focus on what we're going to do to stay sober, and we got to look at the people like on those channels, the Soft Underbelly channel. That could be you. It could be me. It was me. I was like just a couple steps away from it. And we got to understand what's going on and understand how our mind works. And for me, I choose to have a sober mind because I like it. I like to be sober. I like to wake up every day without a hangover, without the shakes, without believing things that I think are real that aren't really real. And I don't ever want to go back there by accident or on purpose. And that's what keeps me sober today. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want the life I had. And we gotta start to understand how our mind works.
And I think one of the things that one thing I didn't mention was just kind of. I remember when I was smoking it just made me get this feeling, and just relax. Some people make them all paranoid and stuff like that. No, it made me relax, but it also gave me energy. I was really kind of a weird combination, but that's how it affected me. But the reason I say that is, in sobriety, especially in the beginning of COVID, like maybe a month or two in, I was like, I remember having this feeling of there's got to be more than I got here. I'm stuck inside the house. I can't do anything. I'm bored. What am I going to do? And I just had that feeling, and I wanted to escape that feeling. It wasn't anxiety. A lot of people have had anxiety in this situation. I didn't have a lot of anxiety these last few months, but there was just this uneasy feeling. And, pot might have taken care of that. I didn't think about it at the time or anything. I haven't thought about it, but that may have taken care of it. But then I choose to do other things, like I could go on a hike. I could go on a bike ride. And so I do that instead. It doesn't give me that instant feeling of satisfaction, but it does give it to me after I'm done. And so that's just kind of the choice I make, is I try to make the right choice. We all have choices every day to make. And those are the ones that help keep me sober.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to realize, like, it's like the old Zen saying, when bored, be bored. So what? It's not going to kill you, right? When happy, be happy. When sad, be sad.
Yeah.
When tired, be tired. When working, work. Whatever you do, do it now. And realize that right now, we have all the time in the world. Right? Time is something that's pretty much made up. Right? It's like we don't have any years. There's no, magic clock in the sky that says it's September. It doesn't exist. What does exist is, the sun goes down and comes up every day, and, we put everything into our boxes, and this is something in our mind and in our lives called categorical reference. And what you're doing is you're trying to put things in boxes. And you're like, okay, these people are bad. These people are good. Feeling this way is bad. Feeling this way is good. And we put it in boxes, and it makes us unable to actually experience things. Like for me, I looked at the guy who was trying to teach me the Buddhist stuff, who had the stutter, and I put him in a box, and I didn't even listen to him. It was as if he wasn't a human. Many times I walked through San Francisco and Skid Row and all kinds of places, and I'd step over people as, oh, these are just, these are these people. And I wasn't able to see them as human beings. And we have to look at that and say, what if we were able to pause and understand people? What if we were able to pause and just understand life? And say, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. What matters is what I do right now. And you can plan on being sober your entire life. You could read books and you could do all kinds of things. But all we have is this moment.
Yeah.
That's all we have. And if you're trying to escape this moment, you need to really look at, like, why? Why do I want to escape this moment? Why have I not learned to just sit and be? And I think the key is to understand that a lot of it is physical. Like, okay, here's the deal. All right, you have an overactive brain. Your brain's going crazy. Can't stop thinking. Go for a run, a strenuous run. Like one where you're tired, obviously with the doctor's permission. And if you're up to par, don't go drinking and running. That's not a good idea. But if my mind is overbeared, and I go to the gym. So I used to go to the gym. I haven't recently, which I'm sure you can tell because I'm getting a little extra here. And we look at it, and when I would go to the gym, I would have anxiety, like severe anxiety where I want to run out of the gym. And he'd be like, you need to lift this weight. And I'm like, well, that's a 5-pounder. I can't lift the 5-pounder. Give me the 2s, That was a joke. I can actually lift a little bit more than 5, maybe the 10. But I would lift that weight, and because it took so much physical energy, my mind had to stop for a minute. I was like, wait a minute. My mind actually stopped. All my anxiety stopped because I had to do something. And when we get to physical, whether it's like lifting weights or even sitting outside and feeling your feet on the grass and feeling the wind and the sun and the rain and cold or hot or whatever it is, get in touch with that. Because what we forget is that our mind and our body is one. We always think our mind's like out here doing its thing and it's just got this body dangling from it. It's not the truth. It's all one. There are books that show that our stomach actually controls our mind to some aspect, right? And if you don't think that it's all one, go get a paper cut, right? You're like, everything's fine, and you get a paper cut. And if you're like me, I'm a big baby and I act like someone just like hacked my arm off. And my wife's like, that's a paper cut. But it changes the way I think. And all I could think about now is the paper cut. Right? Don't go do this. This is an illustration. But understanding that these little things can change the way our mind is, we start to realize, hey, wait a minute. My mind's not in charge. I just think it is. And then it starts to change everything. Because it's not really in charge. You have a cup of coffee, it changes the way your mind is. You have alcohol, it changes the way your mind is. Someone yells at you, it changes the way your mind is. You get anxious, changes the way your mind is. But all through our life, we're looking at it as our mind controls everything, and our mind is the big god of our body and our life. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's all just nothing. Maybe our language, which isn't even ours. I didn't invent the English language. I don't think you did. I don't know when it was invented, but some guy in a suit back in England, I think, something like that, right? We didn't invent the language. And language is like software for the brain. That's all it is. And if you have a problem in life, it's a problem with software, not necessarily a problem with the brain. And when you drink, it sends your software for a loop. But the problem is you're focusing on the content. You're focusing on what your mind is talking about rather than the way your mind is working. If you look at the way your mind's working and you say, well, if I have coffee, it works this way. No, we don't do that. We have coffee and we go, man, I keep thinking about that bad breakup. Must be about the breakup. No, it's the coffee. Oh, my mind won't shut up. Yeah, it's the coffee or the drink or the whatever. And we start to look at this and we start to relax and say, I don't have to be a slave to this anymore.
Now I'm afraid to pick up my coffee cup.
There you go. I got my coffee here. This one's strong, too. I don't know what the hell's the matter with me.
A lot of people are commenting about the exercising. Like Benjamin walks 3 days a week, and Derek goes on bike rides all the time. And Tony says, first thing I do is when I wake up is work out, and I love it. I have a hard time working out right when I wake up, but I do exercise quite a bit, and that's key in sobriety for me. Exercise just helps me clear that mind and get my mind going in the right direction. Another thing that helps me a lot is trying to help other alcoholics get or stay sober. And I don't know if I'm that great at it, but it keeps me sober. And so that helps a lot and keeps my mind going in the right direction. So those two things are pretty big in my sobriety. Yeah, lots of comments about the exercise, and that's good. That's a good thing to do. But one thing, if you're just trying to get sober, you're new to it. You know what I did? I got sober. I wasn't able to do anything. I was very physically ill, and soon after, I waited I think 3 months, but that was 3 months after I got out of the hospital, so I'd already been checked out when I got out of the hospital. And then I went and got a physical and got the okay to do some stuff. And I started off by just walking the dog and, slowly built up. So don't just jump into it, Start slow. That's what everything is, one day at a time. We've already seen that said here a couple of times. And, just go slow and increase. And it's when your body starts to get a little better, it really feels good, and it helps your outlook on life. It took me a long time to get into decent physical shape. I mean, I'm talking years from when I got sober. So, it won't happen overnight. And I don't know that I'm in the greatest of shape right now, but it's progress, not perfection. It's okay.
Absolutely. All right, guys, any last-minute comments, put them in the comment box, and we can take care of your concerns, comments, questions about how to get and stay sober. And, yeah, we'll go from there.
Right on. You want to talk about our program a little bit?
Sure. If you guys are looking to get and stay sober, let's see if we can pull this open here. We got a bunch of resources for you over at talksober.com. It looks like this. All you got to do is hit the big yellow button. You can sign up, and for $27 a month, which is less than the cost of a cheap beer a day, you can actually support the channel here and get all kinds of resources, audios, videos, PDFs, worksheets, all kinds of stuff about how to get and stay sober. It's a 30-day program that you can go through starting today. Once you fill this out, you just put your name, last name, your email, your info here. You can see it is 100% secure because we like to pay a lot of money for our secure sites. We just go in there, fill that out, and you'll get your logins. Also, if you do want to talk to Terry and I privately on a call, you can actually do that right here. Just click on Private Sobriety Call with Marcus and Terry. We'll set up a Zoom call with you where you can join us and talk about sobriety, life, mindfulness, or whatever else you want to do. That helps us keep the doors open here at the old Talk Sober channel. And always we are adding all kinds of things like our Facebook groups and other stuff on talksober.com. But if you do want to get that course and go through it, you can click on the yellow button, sign up, and you'll get that.
Right on.
And smash the like button, as Cobalt3 says.
Yes, indeed.
All right, guys, I think that's about it for today. If you do want to join our Facebook group, we continue the discussions over there, and we can get you rocking and rolling. To the new people I see here, Lizzie, Church Mouse, and some others. Thanks for being here. You guys are always welcome here. Seven Stacks, I think we've seen you before, but I'm not sure. So good to have you here as well. And
Right on.
we're here every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, talksober.com for the sobriety resources. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being here. All right.